What happens when Hollywood's most beloved gentle giant finally snaps on live television? What happens when years of fake smiles and scripted banter suddenly explode into raw, unfiltered truth? Tonight, we're diving deep into the most shocking, late-night television moment that had audiences gasping, security scrambling, and the internet absolutely losing its mind. This is the story of how Jimmy Kimmel pushed Jason Momoa too far, and what happened next will leave you questioning everything. You thought you knew about your favorite celebrities. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because this story is about to get wild. The studio lights blaze down on Stage 12 at El Capitan Entertainment Center as Jason Momoa strode onto Jimmy Kimmel Live with his trademark easy smile and flowing hair. The audience erupted in cheers, phones already recording what they expected to be another charming celebrity interview. Momoa waved enthusiastically, his massive frame somehow both intimidating and welcoming as he settled into the guest chair. Across from Kimmel, "Jason Momoa, everybody," Kimmel announced with his usual smirk, the kind that suggested he knew something the audience didn't. "Thanks for being here, man. You look good. Really good. Almost too good, if you know what I mean." Momoa's smile flickered slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Thanks for having me, Jimmy. Always a pleasure." "So tell me," Kimmel continued, leaning forward with that predatory gleam in his eyes that regular viewers had come to recognize, "I've been hearing some interesting things about you lately. Some people are saying you're not quite the humble guy from Hawaii that you pretend to be. Care to comment on that?" The question hung in the air like a loaded gun. Momoa's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly, but his media training kicked in. "I'm not sure what you mean, Jimmy. I've always tried to stay true to my roots and be authentic with my fans." "Authentic," Kimmel repeated, drawing out the word like it tasted bitter. "That's interesting, because I've got sources telling me that behind the scenes, you're quite the diva, demanding special treatment, throwing tantrums when you don't get your way. That doesn't sound very authentic to me." The studio audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the usual playful banter they expected from a late-night talk show. Momoa's hands gripped the armrests of his chair, his knuckles whitening slightly. "Jimmy, I think your sources might be mistaken," Momoa replied, his voice still controlled, but with an edge creeping in. "I pride myself on being professional and respectful to everyone I work with." "Do you?" Kimmel pressed, his smile growing wider and more sinister. "Because I've also heard that you're not too happy about some of the casting decisions for your upcoming projects. Specifically, that you think certain actors who happen to be people of color aren't quote-unquote right for the roles they've been given." The accusation landed like a bombshell. Momoa's eyes flashed with genuine anger for K. "The first time. That's absolutely not true, and you know it. I would never say anything like that. I've always been an advocate for diversity and inclusion in Hollywood." "Have you, though?" Kimmel's voice took on a mocking tone. "Or is that just another part of your carefully crafted image, the noble savage, the gentle giant, the voice of the people? It's all very convenient, isn't it? Especially for someone who grew up privileged in paradise." "Privileged?" Momoa's voice rose slightly, causing the audience to murmur nervously. "Jimmy, you clearly don't know anything about my background or what I've been through to get where I am today." Kimmel chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth. "Oh, come on, Jason. You grew up in Hawaii, you're a movie star, you married one of the most beautiful women in Hollywood. Well, until that didn't work out. Life's been pretty good to you, hasn't it? Maybe it's time to stop playing the victim." The mention of his divorce was the first real blow that visibly staggered Momoa. His composure cracked, and for a moment, genuine pain flashed across his features. That's personal, Jimmy. That has nothing to do with why I'm here tonight." "Doesn't it, though?" Kimmel leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying himself. I mean, here you are, promoting another movie where you play the strong, silent hero who gets the girl. Must be nice to live in Fantasyland where everything works out, unlike real life, right? Momoa was breathing heavier now, his chest rising and falling as he struggled to maintain control. You're crossing a line here, Jimmy. Am I? Kimmel's eyebrows rose in mock surprise. I thought we were just having a conversation. Isn't this what talk shows are for? Getting to know the real person behind the persona. And from what I can see, the real Jason Momoa might not be someone people would want to root for. The audience was dead silent now, sensing that something had gone terribly wrong. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was a public execution, and Jimmy Kimmel was wielding the axe with surgical precision. You want to know the real me? Momoa's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper that somehow carried across the entire studio. The real me is someone who's worked his ass off for everything he's achieved. The real me is someone who's faced rejection, discrimination, and doubt every single day of his career. The real me is someone who's tried to use his platform to lift others up, not tear them down like you're doing right now. Kimmel's smile never wavered. That's a beautiful speech, Jason. Really touching. But here's what I think the real you is. A guy who's gotten by on his looks and his muscles, who's never had to face real adversity, and who's now bitter because his personal life fell apart, and he's realizing that maybe he's not as special as everyone told him he was. That was the moment everything changed. Momoa's face went from hurt to cold fury in the span of a heartbeat. His entire body tensed like a coiled spring, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of mountains. You have no idea what you're talking about, Jimmy. No idea at all. The studio felt like it was holding its collective breath, waiting for the explosion that everyone could sense was coming. Even Kimmel seemed to realize he might have pushed too far, but his ego wouldn't let him back down now. Enlighten me then, he said, though his voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. Tell us all about your struggles, your hardships. Help us understand why we should feel sorry for the guy who has everything most people can only dream of. Momoa stood up slowly, his 6'4" frame towering over the seated talk show host. The cameras captured every muscle in his face as he fought for control, every vein that stood out on his neck, every tremor in his hands as he clenched and unclenched his fists. You want to know about struggle, Jimmy? Momoa's voice was barely controlled thunder. Let me tell you about being told you're too ethnic for Hollywood. Let me tell you about being pigeonholed into stereotypical roles, because that's all casting directors could see when they looked at you. Let me tell you about watching your marriage fall apart in the public eye, while people like you make jokes about your pain for ratings. Kimmel tried to interject, but Momoa held up a hand that silenced him immediately. No, you wanted this conversation, so we're going to have it. You sit there in your comfortable chair, making millions of dollars, by mocking people, by tearing them down for entertainment, and you think that gives you the right to judge me, to question my authenticity, to diminish my experiences? The audience was transfixed, watching what felt like a real person emerging from beneath the Hollywood veneer for the first time. This wasn't the charming, easygoing Jason Momoa they thought they knew. This was something raw, something real, and something dangerous. Kimmel shifted uncomfortably in his chair, finally realizing that his usual tactics weren't working on the towering figure before him. But instead of backing down, his ego pushed him to double down on his attack. Oh, here we go, Kimmel said, with a dismissive wave. The sob story. Look, Jason, everyone in Hollywood has faced rejection. Everyone's had to deal with being typecast. You're not special because you had to work for your success. At least you had the genetic lottery on your side. Some of us had to rely on actual talent. The insult hung in the air, like poison gas. Momoa's eyes narrowed to dangerous slits, and his voice dropped to a whisper that somehow felt more threatening than any shout. Actual talent? He repeated slowly. You mean like the talent it takes to read jokes off cue cards that other people write for you? The talent it takes to sit behind a desk and mock people who are actually out there creating art, taking risks, putting themselves on the line. Kimmel's face flushed red. I've been doing this for decades, Jason. I've built an empire. I've hosted award shows. I've interviewed presidents. What have you done besides flex your muscles in front of a green screen? What have I done? Momoa's laugh was bitter and cold. I've created character that inspire people. I've brought representation to communities that never saw themselves as heroes before. I've used my platform to fight for environmental causes, to speak up for indigenous rights, to actually make a difference in the world. What do you do, Jimmy? What do you actually contribute besides negativity and division? The studio audience was completely silent now, some people actually leaning forward in their seats, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. The cameras captured every micro-expression, every bead of sweat forming on Kimmel's forehead as he realized he was losing control of his own show. You know what your problem is, Jason? Kimmel's voice cracked slightly. You can't handle being challenged. You're so used to everyone kissing your ass and telling you how wonderful you are that the moment someone asks you real questions, you fall apart. Real questions? Momoa stepped closer to the desk, his presence filling the entire frame. Is that what you call making up lies about me being racist? Is that what you call attacking my personal life? Is that what you call undermining my work and my character on national television? I'm doing my job, Kimmel shot back, but his voice lacked conviction now. I'm holding celebrities accountable. Someone has to puncture the bubble you all live in. Your job? Momoa's voice rose for the first time, causing several audience members to visibly flinch. Your job is supposed to be entertainment, Jimmy. Your job is supposed to be making people laugh, bringing joy into their lives. Instead, you've turned it into a platform for your own insecurities and bitterness. My insecurities? Kimmel stood, up now too, though he still had to crane his neck to look Momoa in the eye. I'm not the one who's been crying about typecasting and discrimination. I'm not the one who can't handle a little criticism. Criticism? Momoa's hands balled into fists at his sides. You haven't criticized my work or my performances. You've attacked my character with baseless accusations. You've mocked my heritage, my personal struggles, my family. That's not criticism, Jimmy. That's just cruelty disguised as comedy. Fiues. Tension in the studio was palpable now. Security guards were shifting nervously at the edges of the set, unsure whether to intervene. The audience looked like they were watching a car crash in slow motion, unable to look away but deeply uncomfortable with what they were seeing. Oh, please, Kimmel scoffed, though sweat was now clearly visible on his face. You're Hawaiian royalty. You're a movie star. You live in mansions. Save the oppression narrative for someone who'll buy it. Hawaiian royalty? Momoa's voice was incredulous. Do you hear yourself right now? You're reducing my entire cultural identity to some Hollywood fantasy. You have no understanding of what it means to be native Hawaiian, what my people have been through, what we continue to face every day. Your people? Kimmel's voice took on a mocking tone that made the audience gasp. Come on, Jason. You're an actor from Iowa who moved to Hawaii. Stop acting like you're some kind of indigenous warrior fighting the system. That was the final straw. Something fundamental shifted in Momoa's entire demeanor. The carefully controlled rage that had been simmering beneath the surface finally boiled over. And when he spoke, his voice carried the power of thunder rolling across mountains. How dare you? Each word was delivered with surgical precision. How dare you sit there and erase my identity, my connection to my culture, my family's history? How dare you minimize the struggles of indigenous peoples around the world just to score points in your pathetic attempt at controversy? Kimmel took a step back, finally recognizing that he had crossed a line he couldn't uncross. Jason, I think you're overreacting here. This is just this is just television. This is what we do. This is what you do, Momoa corrected, his voice now carrying a weight that seemed to press down on everyone in the studio. This is your legacy, Jimmy. Tearing people down, spreading negativity, dividing communities for your own gain. You've built your entire career on the pain and embarrassment of others. I've built my career on comedy, Kimmel protested weakly. Comedy? Momoa's laugh was harsh and mirthless. There's nothing funny about what you've done here tonight. There's nothing entertaining about attacking someone's heritage, their personal life, their professional integrity. This isn't comedy, Jimmy. This is just sad. The cameras captured every moment as Momoa began to pace behind the guest chair, his massive frame radiating an energy that made everyone in the studio acutely aware of just how physically imposing he truly was. You want to know what's really pathetic? Momoa continued, his voice building like a gathering storm. You have this platform, this incredible opportunity to bring people together, to celebrate human achievement, to inspire and uplift. And instead, you use it to feed your own ego by diminishing others. Kimmel was visibly sweating now, his usual smugness completely evaporated. Look, maybe we got off on the wrong foot here. Maybe we should take a commercial break and reset. Reset? Momoa stopped pacing and fixed Kimmel with a stare that could have melted steel. You think you can just reset after what you've done? After the lies you've told about me? After the way you've disrespected my culture, my family, my life's work? I was just doing my job, Kimmel repeated, but the words sounded hollow even to him. No, Jimmy. Your job is to entertain people. Your job is to make them feel good about themselves and the world around them. Your job is to celebrate human achievement and bring communities together. Instead, you've chosen to become a professional bully, hiding behind the guise of comedy to justify your cruelty. The studio was so quiet you could hear the hum of the cameras, the nervous breathing of the audience, the distant sounds of Los Angeles traffic outside. Everyone was transfixed by this unprecedented breakdown of the usual talk show facade. You sit there night after night, Momoa continued, his voice now carrying the weight of years of suppressed frustration, making jokes at other people's expense, tearing down anyone who dares to achieve something, to be successful, to stand for something meaningful. And you call that entertainment? Kimmel opened his mouth to respond, but Momoa held up a hand that silenced him immediately. I'm not finished, Momoa said, and the authority in his voice was absolute. You've built your entire career on cynicism, on the assumption that success is somehow shameful, that anyone who achieves anything must have done so through privilege or luck, rather than hard work and talent. The transformation was complete. Now, the charming, media-trained movie star was gone, replaced by something raw and real and utterly uncompromising. This was Jason Momoa without the Hollywood filter, and it was both terrifying and magnificent to behold. You know what the real tragedy is here, Jimmy. Momoa's voice filled every corner of the studio, commanding absolute attention. You have all this power, all this influence, and you use it to make the world a smaller, meaner place instead of helping it grow. Kimmel's face had gone pale, his usual confidence completely shattered. He looked like a man who had finally realized he was in a fight he couldn't win. Jason, I think maybe we should wrap this up. We're getting a little too intense here for late-night television. Too intense. Momoa's eyes blazed with fury. You think this is intense? You started this, Jimmy. You invited me here under false pretenses. You ambushed me with lies and personal attacks. And now you want to wrap it up because you're uncomfortable. Because you're finally seeing the consequences of your actions. The audience was completely mesmerized, phones recording every second of what they instinctively knew was television history in the making. This wasn't just a celebrity losing his temper. This was a complete deconstruction of the entire late-night talk show industrial complex. I've watched you for years, Momoa continued, beginning to pace again like a caged lion. I've watched. You tear down politicians, actors, musicians, athletes, anyone who dares to put themselves out there and try to make something of their lives. And I've watched audiences laugh along, as if cruelty was somehow entertainment. It's satire, Kimmel protested weakly. It's commentary on celebrity culture. Satire! Momoa's laugh was bitter and cutting. Satire punches up, Jimmy. Satire challenges power structures and hypocrisy. What you do is punch down. What you do is pick on people for having the audacity to dream, to succeed, to be different from you. Kimmel tried to regain some composure, straightening his tie and attempting his trademark smirk. Look, if you can't handle the heat of being a public figure, maybe you should have stayed in Iowa. The insult landed like a physical blow, but instead of enraging Momoa further, it seemed to center him. His voice became deadly calm, each word measured and deliberate. There it is, he said quietly. There's the real Jimmy Kimmel. The bitter, small-minded man who can't stand seeing others succeed because it reminds him of his own limitations. You think because you have a late-night show that gives you the right to diminish anyone who's achieved something you haven't. I've achieved plenty, Kimmel shot back, but his voice cracked on the words. Have you? Momoa stepped closer to the desk, his presence overwhelming. What have you achieved, Jimmy? What have you created that will outlast you? What have you built that makes the world better? Because from where I'm standing, all I see is a man who spent his career tearing others down to make himself feel bigger. The studio was so quiet that the sound of Kimmel's swallowing was audible. His hands were shaking slightly as he gripped the edge of his desk. You want to know what real achievement looks like? Momoa's voice rose again, but this time with passion, rather than anger. It's using your platform to elevate others. It's taking roles that bring representation to communities that have been ignored. It's fighting for causes bigger than yourself. It's inspiring young people to believe they can be heroes too, regardless of what they look like, or where they come from. That's very noble, Kimmel said, but his sarcasm fell flat. It is noble, Momoa replied without hesitation. And the fact that you say that like it's a bad thing tells me everything I need to know about who you really are. You've become so cynical, so poisoned by your own bitterness, that you can't even recognize genuine passion when you see it. Kimmel opened his mouth to respond, but Momoa wasn't finished. The floodgates had opened, and years of frustration were pouring out. Do you know what it's like to carry the hopes and dreams of an entire community on your shoulders? Momoa asked, his voice carrying the weight of genuine emotion. Do you know what it's like to walk into audition rooms and know that you're not just representing yourself, but every Pacific Islander, every indigenous person who's ever been told they don't belong in Hollywood? I'm sure it's very difficult, Kimmel said dismissively. Don't you dare mock that. Momoa's voice cut through the air like a blade. Don't you dare minimize what it means to be the first, to break barriers, to open doors for others. You sit in your bubble of privilege and make jokes about things you'll never understand. The cameras captured every nuance of Momoa's face as he spoke, the pain and pride and determination that had driven him throughout his career. This wasn't just an angry celebrity anymore. This was a man bearing his soul on national television. You know what the saddest part is? Momoa continued, his voice softening slightly. You could have been better. You could have used your platform to build bridges instead of burning them. You could have celebrated achievement instead of mocking it. You could have been part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Kimmel's face crumpled slightly, as if the weight of Momoa's words was finally sinking in. I, this is television, Jason. This is what people expect. No, Momoa said firmly. This is what you've trained them to expect. You've normalized cruelty and called it comedy. You've made cynicism fashionable and sincerity embarrassing. You've created a culture where tearing people down is more acceptable than building them up. The studio audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. Some people were crying, others looked stunned. All of them seemed to understand that they were witnessing something profound and unrepeatable. I feel sorry for you, Jimmy, Momoa said, and the sincerity in his voice was devastating. I feel sorry for anyone who's forgotten what it means to be inspired, to be hopeful, to believe in the possibility of human greatness. Because that's what you've lost, isn't it? The ability to see the good in people, to celebrate their achievements, to find joy in their success. Kimmel's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, completely unable to formulate a response. His entire worldview, his entire career, was being systematically dismantled by a man he had tried to humiliate. This conversation ends now, Momoa said with quiet authority. Not because you wanted to, but because I refuse to participate in this toxic culture any longer. I refuse to be part of a system that rewards cruelty and punishes authenticity. He turned toward the audience, his voice carrying across the studio with the power of absolute conviction. To everyone watching, to everyone who's ever been told they're not good enough, not talented enough, not worthy enough, I want you to know that you are. Don't let anyone's bitterness or insecurity make you doubt your own worth. Don't let anyone's cynicism kill your dreams. And don't let anyone convince you that success is something to be ashamed of. With that, Momoa walked off the set, leaving Kimmel alone at his desk, speechless and visibly shaken. The audience didn't know whether to applaud or sit in stunned silence. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of Kimmel's complete breakdown of composure. The studio fell into an uncomfortable silence as Momoa's footsteps echoed through the corridors backstage. In that moment, everyone present knew they had witnessed something that would be talked about for years to come. This wasn't just a celebrity meltdown or a publicity stunt. This was a complete revelation of character, a moment where the masks came off and the real people underneath were revealed. Jimmy Kimmel sat alone at his desk, his empire of cynicism crumbling around him, while Jason Momoa walked away with his dignity intact and his message delivered with devastating clarity. The king of late-night comedy had been dethroned by someone who refused to play by his rules, and the entire world had watched it happen. So what do you think? Was Jason Momoa justified in his explosive response to Jimmy Kimmel's attacks? Or should celebrities just accept this kind of treatment as part of the job? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and make sure to subscribe for more incredible celebrity stories that you won't see anywhere else. What other celebrity confrontations do you think we should cover next?